Once you find yourself in conflict with a narcissist, it's a virtual guarantee they're going to start playing head games with you. That's why I put together a new course. It's very extensive called Anger Games. I'm going to teach you how to manage anger and conflict with a narcissist. There's a link below that's going to show you how to register, and I hope that you find it to be very insightful. Let me set up today's discussion by letting you know first, I'm all for individuals having self-esteem. I'm all for people standing up for oneself, standing in self-respect for what they believe is wisest and best. I'm all for people standing up for their needs, standing up for their valid convictions. It's reasonable for any one person to say, this is me, this is who I am, this is what I stand for. Now, there's a healthy way of doing that, and I hope that that's something that you and I can go into that direction with. But then there's a very unhealthy way that narcissists will lock on to what I just said, but they'll take it in such a way that leaves you wondering, like, what kind of person am I dealing with here? There's one characteristic that I want to help make you aware of that describes many people who are inside the narcissistic pattern, that takes this sense of self-esteem and turns it upside down in an awful way. And that's the word hubris. You ever heard that word? Many of you have. Some of you kind of wonder, well, what's that all about? When we talk about narcissists who also hold on to hubris, we're talking about an individual whose sense of self-importance is grossly exaggerated. In other words, they have arrogance that's on steroids. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. I knew a college-age boy who had gone to a friend's house, and there were several young fellas like that that had gathered together at this friend's house. And so they had been goofing off and doing what college boys do, and they settled into to the guy's family room, and they were watching a movie. Towards the end of the afternoon, early evening, the father came home from work, and this young college guy who was visiting there said, "Hey, Mr. Smith, why don't you come on and join us and watch the movie?" And the father walked in the room and said, "Let me explain something to you. You're sitting inside of my house, enjoying my cool air conditioning, sitting in my comfortable chairs, watching my big screen TV, and you don't have the right to come and tell me what I should come and do in my own house." And that college kid just kind of pulled back like, is there a hole I can go crawl into? That's hubris. That man had such a strong and such an overwhelmingly arrogant attitude towards his boy that he couldn't just say, "Yeah, I'd love to come join you," or "No, I'm going to go do something else." But he had to assert his self-importance. That's what I'm talking about. Now, the people that in your life who operate with a great deal of hubris may not do something quite like that, but they have their own ways of going about it. And I want to give you a little checklist of things that we can watch for that tells us that an individual is all the way into this hubris, this selfishness, this grandiosity in an exaggerated way. Here's what we're looking at. First, when we refer to as the narcissistic hubris, we're talking about an exaggeration of one's own personal uniqueness. In addition to that, we're talking about insufferable superiority. It's like, oh, here that person comes again. On top of that, then, that leads to them using chronic condescension. That's what that man that's speaking to the college boy did. It's just incredibly condescending. Hubris means that you are very dismissive and invalidating with an extra measure of haughtiness as you go about doing it. Also, with the person that lives inside hubris is someone who feels no need whatsoever to admit anything wrong. They have no need to seek forgiveness for anything that goes wrong. Now, the person with hubris is someone who's going to be insulting, as that guy was. And then when they're insulting, they actually feel justified. It's because, well, you just don't have the same input as I have. You don't have the same importance as I have now, do you? And then in addition, people who operate with hubris have a very low level of remorse for belittling other individuals, because you know what? Those people deserve whatever belittlement comes their way anyway. That's what we're talking about when we say hubris. Now, along with this attitude of hubris come all sorts of byproducts. For example, the person who has hubris is incapable of receiving direction. It's like, I don't need direction from you. You need to do what I tell you. That's the way it works around here. I wonder if any of you have run across that particular person. These individuals have an astonishingly low level of insight regarding their interpersonal interactions with other individuals. It's like, I don't need to look at who I am and examine where I'm coming from. I don't do stuff like that. And as a result, they're terribly non-reflective. On top of that, they have very easy anger. And sometimes they can rage, and they can just come out in a very rude and contentious kind of way. And then they kind of have this attitude, how dare you come against me? And then when you don't go along with their program, they hold grudges. That's another byproduct. A part of their hubris leaves the byproduct of them having no compassion for other individuals. And I think that's terribly pitiable. If they see someone struggling or having a difficulty, their attitude is, well, that's your problem for being so stupid. That's how they think. And then, of course, you can see that this indicates that there's no empathy that's on the inside of them whatsoever. Now, let's take this a little bit further. I'm certain that so many of you who are listening here today can think, oh, I know some people who are this way, and they're impossible. Exactly what's going on inside of an individual that takes them to this exaggerated level of hubris? What kind of an individual is eaten up like this? Well, first and foremost, and this one's it kind of takes us into a dark direction. Many individuals who have this strong hubris are often the ones who will also display sociopathic tendencies. Now, when I say sociopathic tendencies, the rules don't apply to me. I don't have to live inside of anybody's authority. I take no direction from anyone. I don't respect what your rules and your standards are. Things go according to what I say. They don't have any remorse for hurting other individuals. Their conscience is not that strong. They don't want to be held accountable. That's what I mean when I say they have strong sociopathic tendencies, and they can lean into that. Now, taking that a little bit further, these individuals are also people who are drawn towards very powerful authoritarian patterns. These are people that might think, well, since I'm so unique, you need me to give you direction, and you had better appreciate it. And so they can come across in very dominant and controlling and overbearing kind of ways. It wouldn't come as a surprise when we ask what kind of person has this hubris. These are individuals who expect the position of privilege. It's like, well, I want to have special status because, well, this is me. And then you're just a lowlife, so why don't you get out of the way and let me have the position of honor? On top of that, these individuals tend to be very easily abusive. Many of them were abused themselves, and they were exposed to very overpowering individuals. It's like, you know what? That's my turn. And they can be abusive even towards people that are supposedly close to them, whether it's a family member or a person in business or a social ally. They don't really respect people beyond what they can do for them. And if they don't come through, then here comes the harsh, punitive kind of an attitude. In addition, we can say that people with hubris, their defenses are off the charts. They absolutely will not be personally vulnerable. They absolutely won't laugh at themselves. They can't be teased. You can't say anything to them about any suggestion where they can go in a different direction. Their walls are thick and impenetrable. And then in addition, we can say that ultimately their own selfishness is going to be their undoing. Many of them will go down in flames. Because they don't develop friendships or relationships, all they do is they develop transactions and assets. And so over time, they become more and more isolated, and they just kind of get somebody else that's going to fill whatever position they want them to be in. That's what I mean when I say some narcissists are eaten up with hubris. And it's a very disturbing pattern. And you look at these individuals, and truly they can be self-impressed, and they like to have that look of success and all about themselves. And it's like, this is so shallow and so pitiable and so destructive. So if you have somebody like that who's in your life, first let's recognize it for what it is. Hubris represents 100% phony confidence. Understand that. Now, they won't see it, but nonetheless, they'll demean anybody that's in their way, and you don't build up your own confidence by diminishing other people. In addition, understand that these are individuals who live outside of reality. They're delusional in their own importance and your lack of importance, and they don't have a good sense of what is accurate and correct and appropriate. Beyond that, we're going to say, remember, you're not going to be happy with a person like this. At first, they can come off like, man, you need to get on my coattails because things are going to be real good if you go along with my program. But keep in mind, when you're with somebody that operates with this kind of hubris, you're not in a relationship. That's not how they do it. That being the case, you're going to need to remove yourself as soon as possible. And then when you do remove yourself, you're going to need to prepare yourself for blame and condescension and all that's going to go along with it. And then when that happens, remind yourself, this illustrates why I need to get away from that person. Don't go back. Sometimes I ask the question, can narcissists change? And if you have people down on the lower end of the spectrum, I do say it's a spectrum, sometimes people can change if tensions and strains get hard enough. But when somebody has gone all the way into the place of hubris and it's an ongoing pattern, the odds of them changing are between 0 and nil. I'm sad to say that. Understand what you're dealing with. And then, of course, I'm hoping you can decide, well, somebody needs to be someone who has that healthy sense of self-esteem. Be that, and then be that way away from that person who's got that exaggerated self-importance. I hope this gives you some insight about what you might be dealing with. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We're going to keep more videos coming towards you. Sometimes when you're dealing with someone of this nature, it can be so difficult for you, it can be helpful for you to get some therapy. You know that I've been sponsored for years by the people at BetterHelp.com. There's a link below that will take you to their website. It can be so good for someone that honestly honors you, that says, I want to know you, I want to know your backstory. Let's talk about how we can get healthy patterns in play with you. If the need is there for that help, please go through the link that we have and get the assistance you need. In my retirement from my counseling practice, I've stayed, reasonably active. And one of the things I do is I put together online courses. And each of the courses that I have has at least 25 teaching videos. I'm drawing upon years of experience with a lot of people. Each video has documentation handouts, very extensive, by the way, with guided questions. We have my latest one is called Anger Games, about how not to get sucked into their anger. This is me about establishing those boundaries. Ready, Set, Connect, about having healthy connections, free to be, finding yourself. In addition, on my website, and all of that's below the video here, we have my website that has my webinars that are on there, 90-minute presentations, along with access to my podcast, many, and when I say many articles, and my books, etc. So avail yourself to our resources. When you come across a narcissist who is acting with great hubris, you're dealing with somebody who's bad news. They have no regard for you beyond what you're going to do for them in that moment. Know what you're dealing with, and then practice your own self-esteem, which is going to lead you to self-preservation. Because you don't deserve what they have to offer to you. Instead, I'm hoping you can have steadiness and people who know equality and appreciate that. And as you pursue that kind of mindset, it allows you to become the person of peace.